Sure. Got it.
Dear friends, this is Pax Europiana, the podcast about peace in Europe, and I'm very, very honored today to have the chairman of the European Party of Armenia here with me this morning. And actually, it's 1 o'clock in Armenia at the moment, and he is in a transformational moment of this country on its way to the European Union. I'm very honored that you join us here at the podcast. Please, can you introduce yourself and also discuss your key political priorities for European accession?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Fellingel, for your kind invitation. My greetings to your distinguished public. My name is Tigran Khzmalyan. My surname might sound a little bit unfamiliar, but it has a root which you might know because there is a common Armenian and Greek word which is describing the split in the churches. In Greek it sounds schisma, the ancient split. So my surname is Khzmalyan. Khzum is a split, the same word. So eventually we are part of the same heritage of Christian civilization. That's why I'm mentioning this, not only to make my surname more familiar, but
you are the oldest European Christian civilization, and I'm very proud that you decide now to join our part of the world. And welcome back, Armenia,
Absolutely.
to Europe, I would say.
Absolutely. This is the key word is back. Eventually, we adopted Christianity as a system of values and as a state religion in distant 301, before even Milano edict of Emperor Constantine. And since that time, we've never changed our religious, or should I say better, our common values. What is common between Armenia and Europe, your part of the Europe, or remote parts like Iceland or Poland, which is closer to us? We share the same values, and it's not about religion. I would say not only the religion. This is the main values of human freedom, human rights, rights of the nation and minorities. This is those basic things which we not only share, but which we defended with huge victims through all our lives. Armenia is known as a nation which was persecuted for its Christian faith in 1915, 1921 by Ottoman Turkey with assistance of Russia, first Imperial Russia and then Soviet Russia. But genocide is something which is never ending. And just 2023 marked another tragical movement in this millennia-long century when one of the ancientest part of Armenia, Artsakh, or Nagorno-Karabakh as it was called by Russians, was depopulated, and 150,000 Armenians were deported from the country where they were living for thousands of years, where our Christian temples and castles are standing abandoned right now. However, Armenia is still fighting, just like we did for centuries. And right now we're undergoing a dramatic transformation when, after 200 years of Russian dominance, paying horrible price for our illusions and our dependence from a Russian empire and then Soviet and post-Soviet Russia, we are making our decisive steps, as you said, back to Europe. And
you're very welcome.
Thank you very much. Your moral support is priceless for us because, of course, the nation is traumatized by the losses, by the war, by the genocide, and it's very important to see a family of the nations which share the same values. In the end of the last week, literally Friday, the initiative which we started last September with collecting 60,000 signatures, public signatures, on behalf of Armenian application to EU membership, was introduced to the parliament, and it passed the profile committee.
Very good. Congratulations.
Next month, thank you. Next month, by the mid-February, we are expecting it to be accepted as a bill and to becoming a law, which would decide and shape our future life in coming years. Armenia has to be prepared to become a member of first European Union and then NATO. And we believe that this will be Southeastern Europe, the southeastern border of European civilization.
Very good. And you also want to join NATO?
Absolutely, because
very good.
Unlike some other countries whose choice for Europe was economic, maybe ideological, for us, Europe is also a matter of security. Europe does not even realize how strong it is. The flag that is behind you right now, the blue and golden flag, is a border, is a frontier on Armenian border with Azerbaijan. And armless monitors from European Union, there is a special mission, monitoring mission on the board, is enough to stop Azeri-Russian aggression, which couldn't be stopped before they were deployed. So you see, even the very flag without weaponry is strong enough to protect a country and a nation. But of course, we realize that only full membership in NATO might be more than moral support, must be a real guarantee for security of Southeastern Europe, which is shaped by Georgia and Armenia.
The President, dear Tigran, I'm very, very happy about this, because you might remember in September 2023, I made on X, on Twitter, a statement that Armenia has to join NATO. And then the Russian Deputy Minister of Defense, and they made a statement that's totally ridiculous. Armenia belongs to Russia. They will never join NATO. Günther Fellinger must be crazy, man. And I was a little bit in a media controversy in that situation. And I'm very happy to hear today that you are heading clearly towards EU and NATO.
Exactly. Your provision, your vision, let me say that in this world, was absolutely true. And if, say, 10 years ago, in 2015, when I raised European Union flag in center of the Yerevan during one of the rallies, looked very extravagant and unusual, and there were people who were attacking me and putting the names. Now it's a part of our life, it's part of our security, it's part of our system of values. That's why I'm so proud to be representative of a European Party of Armenia here, which introduced this bill together with our allies, and we hope to run for the parliament in coming parliamentary election. So we would create a legal base for this movement. By 2030, by the last enlargement of European Union, we must be ready.
That's absolutely necessary, I think so. And we have to move fast. You have to go to Brussels and also make this more famous, the case of Armenia in the European Union. It's absolutely vital for the coming years, because I remember 20 years ago when President Saakashvili went first time to Berlin, Chancellor Schröder was basically making fun about the idea even that Georgia might be in the European Union one day. And we have now gone a far way with all the crises and the wars of the last 20 years. And now I think it's much more accepted that the countries of the Southern Caucasus will also join NATO and EU. But there is a lot of resistance, and we have to really have you in Brussels and tour the whole of the European capitals to make the case for Armenia joining the West.
I should wish I think we should meet more frequently. We should be able to explain our case, explain our views, and to make Europe familiar to its southeastern part. By the way, I prefer not to use the word South Caucasus because it's a geographical term. What I'm proposing to use, it's Southeastern Europe. Because geographically, Azerbaijan could be regarded as a part of South Caucasus, but it doesn't mean anything because it's not about geography. It's about civilization. It's about common values, and it's about geopolitics. So right now, the Southeastern Europe marks its frontier, its border with Ukraine and Moldova on the north side of Black Sea, with Georgia and Armenia on the southern side of the sea. This is what ancient Greek called oikoumena. They knew that part of the world that was Ponta Euxinus and Sea, or Pontus as they call it. By the way, you know the Latin word for pont, which means a bridge. So sea is not a gap, it's a bridge. According to Greek mythology, Greek democracy, a Greek vision. So we share this vision, and that's why Black Sea is a natural bridge which makes Armenia and Georgia, or as American politologists are joking, Giorgio Armani. They call this project in a fashionable way. So it makes us the part of a bigger Europe. And this is essential for not only protection of Europe, but also for as a gate towards a bigger and modernized Middle East region, where countries like Iran are undergoing big changes. And we believe that pretty soon we will see absolutely different Iran, much more familiar to Europe and America since 70s. We see a rise of new nations like Kurds, which are fighting for democracy. And with this new Middle East, reshaped Middle East, Europe could be a good neighbor. That's why Armenia and Georgia, which bring Black Sea ports closer to Persian Gulf, might become another transportation crossroad as well. It's not only about defense, it's about cooperation as well.
Tigran, Mr. President, it makes me very happy what you say about Southeastern Europe, because, as you know, I'm advocating since 10 years that Ukraine and Moldova is already, and also the countries like Georgia and now Armenia, they join the structures which we have built for Southeastern Europe in the last 20 years after the Kosovo War. And we have built the Regional Cooperation Council, the Central European Free Trade Agreement, and 20 other institutions which would help Armenia very much now to move closer towards the European Union. In Sarajevo, it's the Regional Cooperation Council. CEFTA is sitting in Brussels, and these are very important institutions, and they help really to bring countries closer to the European Union, to adopt already the legal instruments. And this is really very important for Armenia to join and to build a network together with Albania, with North Macedonia, and of course also with Bosnia, to really join this European world systematically, immediately, because it's a bit easier to join the Regional Cooperation Council, and maybe this is something you want to look at.
Absolutely. Besides European Party of Armenia, which is not a parliamentarian party so far, we are going to be running for the next parliament, the first after devastating war.
When will be the elections?
Regular elections should have been in 2026, but we suspect that the snap elections, the early elections, are more than possible. So it might be somewhere this year as well. Maybe in mid-25, I think it's quite realistic. Besides this, we are incorporated in the group which you might know about. It's a pan-European movement, and with Austrian head of General Secretary of Pan-Europe, Austria, Mr. Reinhard Kluczek, and with heir of your Habsburg dynasty, Princess Walburga von Habsburg Douglas.
These are great personalities and good friends.
Yes, and they're good friends of us. They visited Armenia in 2023, and they helped us to establish Pan-Europe Armenia, of which I'm head of board of members.
Very good.
Board of trustees, sorry. So we are trying not only political, but also different ways of cooperation and coordination of our efforts with various European structures, just like Pan-Europe international movement.
That's very good. So there is a lot of effort already and integration already possible. But look at the Southeastern European, because Pan-Europa is in all the countries of Southeastern Europe, and it would be wonderful to also join the official state structures of Southeastern Europe, because that's a wonderful way to integrate. But Tigran, let's talk about something very serious, which unfortunately I'm not so happy in the case of Armenia. And explain me how is the exact situation? Because to my best knowledge, officially Armenia is still a member of the CSTO, this Russian anti-NATO organization, and of CIS, I'm not totally sure. I see Nikolai Pashinyan often in a bus with Mr. Putin traveling and doing selfies. At least this was 2 years ago and maybe before the war. And I don't know exactly what is the situation here. And I would really like to see the complete disintegration politically and economically of Armenia from the Russian world. And can you give me a little bit the status quo, in which organizations Armenia still is involved, and how you can really exit these failed structures of Russian imperialism?
This is the matter of our main political clashes with the government. And we are part of a strong opposition to this flirt, which Armenia is still in with post-Soviet Russian structures. Regarding CSTO, or so-called treaty organization, Armenia has effectively frozen its membership since 2022. However, we believe it's not enough, and we keep demanding that Armenia to be withdrawn from this organization completely. However, Armenia does not, despite the fact that Armenia does not participate to the military exercises or other structures of this defense Russian-backed, Russian-centered organization. Nikol Pashinyan and his government still keeps ties with economic wing of the same Russian imperialistic structures, which is called Euro-Asian Economic Union. And it's a shame because they raised the trade between Russia and Armenia via these Euro-Asian structures. They quadrupled, tripled or quadrupled the volume of the trade. And it's not only shame because it feeds a Russian military machine, which is using these revenues to fight in Ukraine. It's also operational in suppressing democracy in countries like Moldova, Georgia, and Armenia itself. Russia, since the Soviet time, has very big economic influence in Armenia. It still controls Armenian railroads, Armenian mines, banks, and as a consequences of this, they have big influence with political parties and media as well, because Russia is converting its economic and military presence into political influence. This is something which makes our life very uneasy here. And this is the field where we are clashing and fighting with the current government. Last week, the continuation of this fight in the parliament, where head of Euro Integration Committee told me that economic ties are essential for Armenia with Russia as well, and they do not disturb Euro integration. I said, this is bullshit. This is immoral statement, and it makes us a gigolo country. What does it mean? Europe is not a trade union. I told them it's not a marketplace. It's a union of values. But you do not see the difference between the values and the price, between the market and temple. And I said, I hate to mention the example of Jesus, who forced the merchants out of the temple. But you don't understand the basic things about European civilization. So we are still in a very big fight with the current government. And unfortunately, European structures do not see the democratic opposition in Armenia. And in these terms, they are making the same mistake which we made in Georgia, when they put all the stocks on Saakashvili. But when Saakashvili was isolated, discredited, and imprisoned, European structures failed to support democratic opposition, and Georgia is in a horrible position right now. Georgia surrendered from the former vanguard position. And right now, I see the same mistakes are made towards Armenia as well. People in Europe and in America know about Pashinyan, and they trust his government, which we don't. We don't trust his government, and we believe that only the strong democratic opposition could be a guarantee against tilting and maneuvering, which might make Armenian government the replica of Georgian Dream. Georgian Dream sold their souls for Putin's Gazprom seduction. Right now, in past months, Armenian government resold about 60 or even more tons of Russian gold and many kilograms of the diamonds, Russian diamonds. We all know that it's a prohibited goods to be sold. So it was like a trafficking of prohibited goods. And Armenian government made very dirty deal. It proves that Russians are still bribing young democracies, weak democracies, and we see a big deal of danger here. That's why direct contacts between democratic opposition in Armenia with European structures and American structures as well are so essential for us.
It should be also that Armenia joins and concludes a DCFTA, a deep and comprehensive free trade agreement, or even joins the customs union like Turkey has, because your neighboring countries like Georgia and Turkey are very deeply integrated with the European economy, and it would help Armenian economy, obviously from its geographic position, to be fully integrated into the European internal market. And this is much better than having a smuggling position with Russia, where you don't even have a border and where you have nothing to gain from a disaster coming in Russia. So really turn to the West. And is it one of your demands also to have a DCFTA with the European Union?
Absolutely. And there is a place where we don't see a position, because the government is talking about DFC projects as well. But we know that the efficiency of implementation of this program is questionable, because since 2017, the so-called SEPA program is in power. It's working for Armenia. And it covers a lot of economic cooperation between European Union and Armenia. But even 2.6 billion euros, which were given as a financial part of the SEPA, they are not spent since 2018. For so many years, 7 years, and Armenia is still spending it slowly, despite the fact that the trade with Russia is about $16 billion. So we have to be very transparent, and we have to be very demanding to make our government to implement these programs, both from inside and outside. I think this is a cooperation between democratic opposition and European structures.
Exactly. I wanted to ask you, Mr. President Tigran, you know, we have now a new foreign policy person, the High Representative, Mrs. Kallas from Estonia, and she is much more pro-Ukrainian, she is much more pro-enlargement. And what's your appeal to her? What do you want her to do in the case of Armenia, and how to support the opposition in Armenia?
This is very essential. By the way, we have very special relations with Estonian embassy, despite the fact we don't have Estonian embassy in Armenia. They are covering Armenia and Georgia from Tbilisi, but we do not miss any chance to meet our Estonian friends, because Estonia, as a little country and with a little nation, with a highly educated population, digitalizing economy, governance, is one of the most important examples for us. By the way, we see a very interesting situation when specifically Eastern Europe and Estonia, Lithuania, Poland are becoming the vanguard of European integration, because they have this specific experience of living vis-a-vis Russian threat. That's why they understand our problems and urges closely, very well. We are big fans of Mr. Kaja Kallas with her hardcore style, with her very strong position towards Russian invasion and soft power as well. So we are very supportive toward her kind of politicians. She's a real Iron Lady of European Union right now, much more than Ursula von der Leyen, for example, as far as we see. We hope to see her pretty soon. She's planning to visit Armenia this spring, February or March, I'm not sure. And if I have a chance to meet her, I would emphasize the importance of direct links and cooperation with democratic opposition, not to focus on the government, because the government could be changed. Government is changeable. Governments are fragile. They are flexible. But democratic opposition is something which should be behind this process. Otherwise, the democratization, westernization will be endangered. It's very dangerous to hang all the cards on one nail. It's something that happened in Georgia with Saakashvili, and this is something we want to prevent in Armenia with Pashinyan. That's why we need, and we demand more support, more contacts, and more cooperation between democratic opposition in Armenia and European structures.
Thanks a lot. Tell me about Ukraine. Do you support Ukraine's resistance, and what is the position of the Armenian government towards Ukraine?
European Party of Armenia is the strongest supporter of Ukrainian resistance. Personally, I visited Kiev with a famous Armenian singer, and we organized charity concerts in May 2023 during the war, and I made it specifically to counterbalance the shameful visit of Pashinyan the very same days to Moscow. He visited Moscow on May 9, May 10, 2023, the Red Square and Putin. So then I immediately decided to visit Ukraine as a counter, I wouldn't say counter-offensive, of course, but that was something which we regard as our moral obligation. And we raised money for a heroical Ukrainian army. We have a very strong cooperation with local Ukrainian embassy in Yerevan. We are demanding the Holodomor to be accepted as a genocide, and we hope that Ukraine will accept and recognize Armenian genocide as well. We might do this together. We cooperate with Ukrainian embassy since the moment we were established, since 2018, and through all ambassadors and chargé d'affaires, we are cooperating both with Ukrainian embassy, with Ukrainian media, of which I am a frequent guest in Ukrainian TV channels, and to Ukrainian spilka, as they called Ukrainian community in Armenia, because Armenia hosted a lot of Ukrainian refugees after the war, both Ukrainians and Armenians who were born in Ukraine. So we regard Ukraine as a matrix of future Eastern Europe, as a future center of democracy and development. We believe that there will be a bloom of technological, constructing, political, democratic developments in Ukraine after the war. And Armenia must regard Ukraine as its strategical partner. We might and we must replace Russia as our economic partner with Ukraine. Via Georgia and Black Sea, we could easily do it with ferries, with goods and trade contacts easily, because Ukraine is a country which will be the most important country in Eastern Europe in coming years, and for Armenia particularly.
Tigran, if you are the Prime Minister of Armenia, would you supply weapons to Ukraine?
Would I supply what?
Weapons, arms.
Absolutely, absolutely. No doubt. Despite the fact that we are in danger ourselves, because the war of 2020 in Karabakh was a prelude of the war of 2022. in Ukraine. By the way, very few noticed the fact that one day before the invasion of Ukraine, Putin invited to Kremlin a president of one foreign country, and it was Ilham Aliyev of Azerbaijan. That's why aggression against Armenia has a very a direct link with Ukrainian invasion. First of all these wars are not different. They are part of the same colonial war of Imperial Russia against its former colonies. Besides, Russia is eagerly wants to get, is aspiring to get a southern part of Armenia with the help of Azerbaijan to make a land corridor to Turkey in order to build their gray zone from where the pipelines, oil and gas pipeline should have been pulled. And that must be, according to Putin, Aliyev, and Erdogan's plan, the main source of Russian revenues to continue the war, not only in Ukraine, but against Armenia, Georgia, Moldova, Kazakhstan, and other countries as well. That's why they supported Azerbaijan's attack to Armenian enclave of Nagorno-Karabakh. That's why they want to